Hey folks, I'm going to do something that I don't usually do in this video, and that is I'm going to be responding to a comment on someone else's video. It's not completely disconnected from me. The comment was left on Jessie Gender's recent video that she just put up a couple of days ago. It's her review, reaction, critique of Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 3. And the reason why it's not completely disconnected from me is Jessie invited me to film a little cameo that is in the video at some point. I'm not going to tell you exactly when, because really you should watch the video. But I pop up as like the punchline to a joke that Jessie tells at my expense. And it was cool, and I'm really glad that she invited me to do it. So I'm in the video a little bit, but I recommend you go watch the video just regardless of what I'm about to say in response to this comment. It's a really good video, and Jessie is an amazing and insightful and very funny Star Trek commentator and just media commentator and analyst in general. I will say the video is a little long, so maybe bring a snack if you intend to watch it all the way through. I love you, Jessie. The video is like 3 hours and something long. But the comment that I'm going to be responding to was left relatively early after the video was uploaded, because see, what happened was Jessie tagged me in the video because I'm in it, and because I think I also read a quote. I do like a voiceover in addition to my little on-camera appearance. So Jessie tagged me in the video when it was published, and so I got a notification like as soon as it went up, and naturally I went immediately to watch the video, but also for the most part to look through the comment section to see if people mentioned me. And while I was doing that, I noticed this comment, and I'm not going to show you the name of the person who left it because I'm about to kind of bury them, and I don't want to be guilty of harassing them or bullying them or anything like that, because that's not what this is about. I'm not trying to attack them. I'm just trying to attack their dipshit point of view. So this is the comment. You'll forgive me not watching a 4-hour rant. I just wanted to let you know how toxic you sound to a moderate with that title. Just as bad as the people who generally persecute you. I could make more relevant comparisons, but I don't have authority to speak on such matters. It's nice to know both sides of extreme politic views hate me. First of all, the title that this person claims is toxic to moderates. The title of Jessie's video is Star Trek Strange New Worlds is a centrist fantasy. So even if you do happen to count yourself as a political moderate or a centrist, is that title toxic? Is it even particularly aggressive or outrageous? It seems like a fairly straightforward statement of an opinion that isn't inherently offensive. Like, it's just, oh, Star Trek Strange New Worlds is a centrist fantasy. What's toxic about that? That's indication number one that the person who left this comment maybe isn't someone to be taken seriously and is exhibiting a point of view that isn't worth taking seriously, and maybe is taken way too seriously by a lot of people in the larger media landscape already. Actually, no, I'm wrong. That's not the first indication. The first indication that this particular commenter is not to be taken seriously is when they admit they haven't even watched the fucking video that they're commenting on. Can I tell you what a pet peeve of mine that is? As a YouTuber, now, maybe for a video like Jessie's that is multiple hours long, that's a little more understandable. You might be watching the video and something comes up that you want to comment on right away, so you leave a comment on that particular point before you finish the video. Maybe that makes some kind of sense if you're talking about a very long-form video. But in general, I tend to look down on people who comment on videos they have not watched. This person is commenting, sharing an opinion about the title of the video. And their opinion on the title of the video is completely off base already. But just the fact that I'm going to leave a comment, I haven't watched the video yet, but I have something to say. So I'm going to respond to the title, the completely ordinary, unremarkable title of the video. But that's not all they say. They also say, you're just as bad for the title, for calling the video Star Trek Strange New Worlds is a centrist fantasy. Jesse, in the mind of this commenter, is just as bad as the people who generally persecute her. Think about the reasons why someone might persecute my friend Jessie Gender. She's politically to the left. People might persecute her for that reason. She's a trans person. People most definitely persecute her, if not her personally, then her group for that reason. So because Jessie titled a video, Star Trek Strange New Worlds is a centrist fantasy, she's just as bad in the mind of this commenter as people who generally persecute people like Jessie? Really? But therein lies the problem with this worldview, and with why, and not just the problem with this worldview in this particular instance, because this individual doesn't really matter, but the moderate centrist viewpoint as expressed by this person in general. And I'm not saying that all moderates and all centrists are like this. That's not the point I'm making, but a lot of them are. And a lot of the ones that get attention and take up space in our cultural conversation are of this type. I think maybe the reason why this comment set me off to the point that I felt like I needed to make a video about it is because over the weekend, I also watched John Oliver's new episode, last week tonight's new episode on Sunday night on HBO, where the main story was about Barry Weiss. And Barry Weiss is a moderate, claims to be a moderate, as John Oliver articulated in that piece. If you actually look at her stated positions and how she kind of reacts to issues and treats things, she seems more like she's just a conservative. But she doesn't want to say she's a conservative, so she says she's a moderate. But nevertheless, people who identify as moderate and behave and speak in ways that are reminiscent of Barry Weiss, they really are just the most self-pitying, victim-playing people, aren't they? I'm a moderate. And this commenter even says it. And it sounds like a very, very Barry Weiss thing to say. I'm a moderate. I'm hated equally by both sides. Oh, you must be so proud. You're such a rebel, aren't you? As a moderate. You're such a rebel, and you're so proud of the fact that you draw fire from both sides. I am, and therefore I must be right. Is that how it works? If people on the left hate me and people on the right hate me, I must be I must be the objectively correct party in this equation, right? How could it be otherwise if both sides hate me? Ha ha ha, I figured it out. Just ride the fence and you're golden, right? This kind of shit, the attitude expressed through comments like this, and again, it's not about this individual commenter, it's about the broader attitude that moderates of this kind, of this worldview, have. That kind of attitude, that kind of both playing victim and saying, oh, everybody hates me, woe is me, but also wearing it as a badge of honor and acting like you're some kind of fucking hero. That's one of the big reasons why people hate you all so much. And again, I'm not talking about all moderates, all centrists. I'm talking about just the ones like this. The ones that have to climb up on their fucking cross about it. There's nothing inherently superior, morally or philosophically, about a moderate position. In fact, in many cases, you can make the argument that a moderate position, especially if that's the position you're starting from, if you are intentionally occupying a moderate position between two extremes, as though that's always the reasonable position, you can make an argument in lots of cases that that is actually a morally indefensible position. What's the moderate position in the Israel versus Palestine conflict, when you have one side with a technologically advanced army and allies backing them up that are even more technologically advanced and have even more money and armaments at their disposal, and the other side is a group of people with virtually nothing with which to defend themselves? who have been hammered and attacked over and over and over again for years, and have been the subject of what numerous international organizations have labeled a genocide over the last 2 years, where tens of thousands of people, many of whom are children, have either been outright killed or grievously injured, or suffered from starvation and malnutrition, or had their homes destroyed, their workplaces destroyed, their ways of life utterly robbed from them. What's the moderate position between those two? How can you look at, well, there's this one side that is completely dominant and completely just showing overwhelming force toward this other side that is being utterly decimated and subjected to what is widely considered to be a genocide in the opinion of people who would know? I don't know, though. I don't want to be an extremist. I don't want to take the side of the people who are the victims of the genocide. I feel like that's too extreme of a position, so I'll just carve out a little spot here in the middle. That way I can hear from both sides and make up my own mind, which I never actually will, because I've made a virtue of pretending to never actually make up my own mind. I'll be a moderate. How is that a moral position? How is it a moral position to look at children being mass murdered and say, I don't know if I should side with them or with the people mass murdering them. I'm going to just ride the fence on this and, hear out both sides. What's the moderate position when you look at people in this country, the United States, my country, who are dying or at best going into lifelong debt in order to get necessary medical care? And that's one side. People who are struggling just to pay their medical bills so they don't die, or people who can't pay those medical bills or can't afford to even get the medical treatment in the first place and are just fucking dying. That's one side. And the other side is health insurance companies and medical companies run by millionaires and billionaires who are making just obscene profits off of the sickness and suffering and struggles of the people in the first group. I don't want to take sides. I want to take the moderate position. I want to sit in the middle and look over here and look over there. And maybe the people who are exploiting the sick for their own profit, maybe they have some points. Maybe they have some good reasons for doing it. Maybe they do bring some benefit to society. Maybe I shouldn't just dismiss the people who are getting wealthy off of the sickness and death of the working class and the poor, should I? That doesn't seem fair. I don't want to jump to any conclusions. And I don't want to side too completely with the people over on the other side, with the people who are poor and suffering and dying because they can't afford health insurance or they can't afford to pay their medical bills. I don't want to side with them too completely because, they're not perfect. I bet if you looked in their closet, you'd find some skeletons, huh? So right here in the middle is where I go. I'm not saying that compromise is a bad thing. If you've watched me talk about politics before, I'm a pragmatist. That's one of the things that I have friction with other folks on the left who I agree with. But there's friction in terms of tactics and in terms of short-term and long-term goals because I am a pragmatist. I would like to achieve things and accomplish things and have some progress. And if I can get 50% of the progress that I want and the alternative is 0, I'll take the 50%. I'm not going to hold out for the 100. I'm not an all or nothing type person. I think progress has to be incremental. A lot of people on the left get really angry and really impatient about the idea of incremental progress. But to me, that's the only way it's ever worked. And it's the only way it's ever going to work. But you don't start at the compromise position. See, this is the point that I think moderates and centrists, the ones who really jack themselves off with how moderate they are, this is the point they don't get. Compromise is a good thing. Compromise is an important thing. But compromise is what you have to do in order to get as much of what you want as you can get. Compromise, you don't start with compromise. You start with this is the problem, this is our preferred solution, and now let's fight with the people who oppose us and find as much common ground as we can and make compromises so we can get as much of this as we can right now. And hopefully then get more of it in the future when we have to do this again. You don't start with the compromise. And Democrats, mainstream establishment Democrats, are really bad at this. If you want to know why the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, isn't any better than it is, and look, Obamacare was and is a massive improvement over the system that it replaced. But it also was a huge disappointment to serious healthcare reform advocates because it did not make things as better as they really wanted. And one of the main reasons for that was that when the Democrats began negotiations with the Republicans to pass the Affordable Care Act, they started from a compromise position. They didn't even come to the table asking for a public option. The public option should have been the compromise position. They should have come to the table and said, we want universal health care. Period. Start from that point. Say, this is what we want. We want the United States to finally join the rest of the industrialized world and have a system of universal health care. Single payer. Everybody can get treated for whatever problem they have, and it's paid for through taxes or through some other thing other than private insurance or point of service billing or whatever. We want universal health care. But the Democrats didn't do that. They started with, well, that's asking for too much. Like Medicare for all, that's asking for too much. So let's take that off the table before we even start negotiating. And actually, I misspoke a moment ago. They came to the table with the public option, which would have been a very, very limited, watered-down form of Medicare for all, where people who wanted to sort of opt into something like a single-payer system could do that, but there would also be other reforms for the private insurance industry, and that would, be allowed to continue more or less as it has. So when it came time to negotiate with the Republicans, and to compromise, the compromise was get rid of the public option. And that's what they did. If they had come to the table and pounded their fist and said, all right, motherfuckers, we want universal health care. And we won't rest until we get it. And we won't accept anything less than universal health care. And then they squabble with the Republicans for a few days, a few weeks, whatever. And then maybe the public option is the compromise position. That's not what happened, because they started from compromise instead of starting from their actual position or from starting from what they should have been asking for the start. You don't start with compromise. If you start with compromise, you've already lost, because then you're going to have to compromise your compromise. You see? And that's what moderates don't get. There's a place in politics for compromise. There's a place in politics for meeting in the middle. Sometimes that's necessary. Sometimes you have no choice. Sometimes to get legislation passed, to get even a fraction of the reform you really want, you have to give something up. You have to give something to the other side, even if the other side is as odious and aggressive and brutal and bad faith and bad for the country as the Republicans currently are. Sometimes you have no choice. If you want to get your bill passed, you have to give them something. That's just an unfortunate, ugly truth of politics and of life. Right? When you're negotiating your way through life, sometimes you have to compromise with people, even people who you don't like, or you feel like don't have your best interests at heart. You have to do it. There's no choice. But you don't start from that position. You end up there through negotiation, through argument, through compromise, but you don't start there. And that's what moderates don't get. And they also don't get that just because you do choose to start there, just because you do decide to just ride the fence for everything, that doesn't make you practical, it doesn't make you pragmatic, and it certainly doesn't make you a fucking hero. Bari Weiss seems to think that because she's a moderate and because she doesn't claim either the right or the left as her political home, and because she has enemies on both sides, that somehow that makes her fucking Joan of Arc. It doesn't. And it doesn't make the person who left this comment, who apparently is, occupying the morally righteous and correct position of moderation, but also gets their feelings hurt by the title of the video. Oh, no, Star Trek is a centrist fantasy that's so toxic to people like me. Like, it doesn't make you a hero. It makes you a soft crybaby, and it makes you the kind of person that people on both sides of the aisle just want to shove into a locker or turn upside down and dunk your head into a fucking toilet. And in the case of people like that who left that comment, that's exactly what they deserve. Who's going to come to your rescue when the leftists and the people on the far right are taking turns giving you a swirly? Who's going to come and help you? Other moderates? They might not be too quick to take sides,